All right, so our next guest hails from Revelstoke, BC. I had the privilege to play with him for 3 seasons in Vernon with the BCHL before he went on to have a successful collegiate career at Brown University. Once he got his degree at Brown University in human biology, he signed with the Canucks and Moose at the time with the organization, and then went on to play a few years in the NHL with the Canucks as well as the Capitals. My pleasure to introduce Aaron Volpatti. Welcome to the podcast, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you, Z. I know we don't catch up as much as we should, so.
Yeah, it's been a while. My next trip is definitely out to BC.
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting on it.
Well, this was, I think, podcast 39, and that was the best intro we've ever had. So congratulations, Aaron. This guy spent all night coming up with that intro.
That's what you came up with?
That's not funny. I kept it simple.
I thought it was pretty average, but okay.
I thought it sounded like he was doing a school project there for a second.
Okay, so I'm not doing intros anymore.
Okay, so let's get right to it here, Aaron. Let's start with junior. You played for the Vernon Vipers of the BCHL. You grew up, like Andy said, in Revelstoke, British Columbia. Was playing in the BCHL and going the college route always the plan for you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is just related to my whole story. I didn't really have much of a choice. I wasn't that good. I mean, I kind of just snuck in to junior, really. I mean, did we play together my first year, Zinger? When did you come
Yeah,
back?
it was your first year, and I remember you were probably 6 feet or 5'11" and probably about $150.
Yeah, I wasn't.
So
I think I was listed at like 175 pounds, but that was generous.
You're very small, and you were. Yeah. But yeah, definitely.
To go back to your question, it was more of it was kind of my only option, really. Like, I played junior B in Revelstoke and did pretty well, and then Larry Black, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. Z, you might remember him. He was sort of a scout with the Vipers, and then he moved there full time. But he was the one that played a big part in getting me to that next level. And just, I'll never forget, he was one of the guys that said, "Don't forget who you are. You are this, you're not this." It was very black and white. And as you guys know, roles have really changed in the game. Like when we played Zinger and Vernon, it was like a very hard line between the bottom 6 and the top 6. And you knew exactly where you stood, where I feel like now that's hard partly because the game has changed so much, right? Where all the lines are skilled, but it was like, this is what you are. And I embraced it. And it was just like, I didn't try and change it. So to go back to your question, I didn't really have an option to go to the WHL. I mean, I think I might've got like a letter or two when I was 17, 18 saying, "Hey, do you want to, come to our camp? We just want your money," kind of thing. It wasn't like I had a chance to make the team. Right. So my goal was just to make Vernon. And it was a lofty goal because Vernon was so good. So I could have had a better chance to maybe go somewhere else, but Revelstoke had some affiliation there. So that was my plan, and it was basically my only real option.
So you spent 4 years in Vernon. You talked about meeting Andy there. What was your time like? You said that you kind of didn't expect to kind of play junior A, or that was your only kind of option. Let's try that again. Holy shit. What were those 4 years like for you growing into a role? And what was it like playing with Andy, and some funny stories maybe from your junior career?
Oh boy, funny stories. How much time do you guys got? I don't know. No, I think the best memories are just the amount of fun that we had. Zinger can attest to that. We had a good group of guys, and it helped that we had such a good team too. And I mean, I think, Zinger, you'd agree, the year we went to the finals and lost is still, I look back and I'm just like, I don't even know how it happened. Like we were such heavy favorites, and to lose that, but it was still a really cool ride. And obviously it helps when you're having success as a team, not only personally for moving on, but, in that moment and having fun. Like, we had a good time. I think we partied a lot more than the kids do now. And, we enjoyed our time off the ice, which was fun. And we developed friendships like Zinger and I, and we have a crew of, 4 of us that really keep in touch even to this day. So that's really nice too. Whereas, you know, even in the pro lifestyle, you don't really get that. It's just a different, at least for me, because I did move around quite a bit. So it's tough to have those bonds. And there's so much more turnover with pro, right? You got guys, especially like in the AHL and stuff like that. There's guys coming up, guys coming down, ATOs, PTOs, like all this open door type of thing, which is just the nature of the business. So, and the other part about Vernon was just, you know, the fans. I don't know what they get now here, probably 1,600. We used to pack that place, you know, pretty much every night. So when we played Salmon Arm, it was 3,000 people, 3,000 plus people, and the barn was just going. And that's when we, you know, the game was different. I was just sent out there to literally hurt people, and the crowd would just go bonkers. I think I know, Zinger, you probably remember that starting play we used to do. If you did that now, I'd probably get like not suspended. I think you'd just be kicked out of the league if you did that. But
yeah, you got probably a fine every game.
So I don't know, like for me, coming from Revelstoke, Vernon was a big city, which is hilarious to think now. But it was kind of like, oh, I made it. I remember coming to watch the games here when I was, you know, 12, 13, and that was the NHL. That was like, I want to do that, and I did it, and it was, yeah, we had a great time. Vernon was, I think, even still is probably top 5, if not even higher, programs for junior A in Canada. So we were pretty fortunate. And then, you know, Duncan, the old owner there, treated us like gold, and yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better experience. So
where was the best rink back then to play on the road in the BC Junior?
Oh, that's a good question. I really loved Penticton's old rink, that tiny memorial rink there, because we had some wars with those guys. Probably I remember the most scared I was was my rookie year in Chilliwack. I remember they had the boards, the double boards. It was like, how high are boards? 4 feet, maybe? They had the 4 feet, and then there was another foot of board that like indented. So it was like hitting a cement wall, and they had a tough team. And I was 18, and I was like fighting to stay in the league. I'm this tiny little kid getting beat up half the time. And I remember going to that rink like, holy shit, where am I? But yeah, they had some good barns. Like now they all have these beautiful rinks, right? The kids are spoiled nowadays. We slugged it out, as you guys probably did too, in some of those character rinks that even like Vernon's old Civic, we had those blast from the past games that were hilarious and awesome. I got some good stories about those ones, about Vandy. He would just get so amped up for those games, our coach. But yeah, no, it was a good time. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move to college now. So after Vernon, you spent 4 years at Brown University, majoring in human biology. What was the biggest adjustment that you had to make making that next step to college hockey?
Yeah, that was an interesting one, because like going to Vernon, you know, every sort of step of the way, or every tier I climbed, I kind of always reverted back to fighting, really, and I couldn't do that at Brown. So it was kind of like, you know, what am I going to add to my game? And, you know, in college, I don't know what the rosters are now, but it's, you know, 28, 30 kids. So I remember going there my freshman year and thinking like, how am I going to make the starting lineup? And I basically just reverted, because my last year at Vernon, I had sort of added that layer of offense to my game. Zinger, you remember, like, I don't think I scored my first goal my first year until like game 50. Like I wasn't that good. I was just a grinder and fought a lot. That last year, aside from the burn injuries I dealt with, and I didn't play many games. I think I played 20 or 25 games, but you know, I was starting to find that. And then when I go to college, it was a real eye opener, because just once you climb the ladder, everyone's that much better. And I got there and I thought, geez, these guys are way bigger, way faster. And I knew that I wasn't going to fill a top 6 role again, like just when I went to Vernon. So I just basically said, okay, I got to go back to my grinder. It's funny. I actually just started, we had like our scrimmage games in camp, and I just started running everyone, and I hurt a couple guys. And I remember the coach, I hit this one guy, he was a senior, and he like came around the net And I just basically said, like, all right, I'm just going to basically give them no choice but to play me. And that's finally what happened. The senior came around the net and I just blew him up, and his cage like came into his head and cut him for like 40 stitches. It was a mess. And then he quit the next day, and the coach came in and he's like, you got to stop hitting our guys so much. Like, we got games in a couple weeks. I said, well, I'm just trying to make the team. I don't know who's who. And he's like, you're going to be playing opening night. And I thought, okay, perfect. And I walked out, and so I had made the opening night. But then it's funny, my first game, my first 2 shifts were playing Cornell, and my first shift, I got a 4-minute charging penalty. I don't even think I hit the guy. They score a goal or 2 goals, get it out of the box. Second shift, I get a hitting from behind penalty. 5 minutes, they scored again. We're down like 3-0. I didn't play for 2 months. And I was like, oh, there's my career's done.
Welcome to college.
Yeah, so I similar to my first year at Vernon, I was really just reckless. I don't even think I knew where the puck was my first year in both Vernon and Brown, but that's just what I had to do. And I made a name for myself and got noticed, not maybe in the best way, the first impression at Brown, but once I sort of dialed that in and was smarter about it, then yeah, I made, like I said, I don't think I played for whatever the opening night in college is, like end of October, and then right up until like the last game in December before Christmas break, I think I finally got back in and sort of solidified myself in that role, and then just sort of grew from there.
Awesome. Patty, so next question for sort of a double question. First one is, how did you get to Brown? Like, how were you recruited? And then once you were in Brown, how difficult was it juggling the hockey and the school at the same time, especially at an Ivy League school? Just want to sort of get an idea of how difficult it was for you to juggle that.
Yeah, how did I get to Brown? That's actually another funny story. I was actually in the hospital in Vancouver after this burn accident I had after the playoffs, and that was my goal. Like, once I got to Vernon, I was like, I really want to get a scholarship. I'm not going to major junior. That wasn't an option. And I still, I hadn't got any interest or anything. And then finally I'm sitting in the hospital. I'm a couple weeks in, and Van de Kamp, our coach, calls me and he said, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I just got a call from one of the assistant coaches at Brown University. And, I told him your situation, and I thought, okay, I was pretty amped up on painkillers and a little bit out of it. But I talked to him, and then I called Danny Brooks at Brown, and basically, yeah, he was just like, sorry to hear what happened, because at that point I was told I wasn't even playing hockey again. So it was kind of just like kicking the ass. And but that's funny, after I hung up the phone, he was just, he just said, listen, like, we just wish you a good recovery. Hope you get better. We know the future's uncertain, but, we like you as a player. Like, I know he told Van de Kamp, our coach, hey, we're looking for this type of player. And Vandy said, well, I got the perfect guy for you. He's just, there's a little problem. He's in the hospital, right? So, yeah, but it's funny. Like, the first couple weeks in that hospital, I sort of accepted that. I'm like, okay, my career's probably over. That's fine. I had a good run. And then after that call, it was just my mindset sort of flipped. And I said, no, like, I don't accept that. Why should I, just because the doctor's saying that doesn't mean I can't do that. So that's a whole nother, a long conversation we could have about how I went about getting healthy and all the journey that summer. But basically that really gave me, pushed me over the edge to become, just a dog, and just not accept, that fate. And so I did that. And then, Zinger, I don't know if you remember, but I did play on opening night, but I had the issues like probably 3 weeks into the season, where because I had, grafts on my legs and burnt through so much muscle, that I had like this pelvis issue that just wouldn't go away. So I was getting like shot up with Toradol and cortisone just so I could play, just so I could try and get that scholarship, because that phone call from Danny Brooks really drove me, and kind of gave me that mindset to overcome that adversity. And finally I got my fly down and came back, and I tried to play, and I was like, was coming to the rink on crutches. I could barely walk. And once they offered me and I signed my letter, we just basically said, okay, I need to shut it down and try and get healthy here. So it was quite the journey. And, but that was honestly like my NHL when I signed with Brown. I was like, it was such a relief of what I'd gone through that previous summer. So that's the story of how that happened. It was, I had talked to a couple other schools at the start of the season, but not like Brown. So once again, it was kind of like, it was sort of my only choice. And like, I was chasing that scholarship. So as soon as that was an option, I said, yep, okay, boom. And then we agreed with Vandy and Brown just to shut it down and try and get healthy. And then to your question about, juggling school at Brown, that was, that wasn't an easy one really. Like when I went there, everyone was taking, business, economics. And I kind of just assumed that's what I should be taking. And they had a good mentorship program there, which was really helpful. So I chatted with my guy and I said, I don't know what to take. Like, I don't want to take business. I just wasn't interested in that. He's like, what do you want to take? And once again, I didn't think pro hockey was an option. It wasn't even on the radar for me at this point. I was 21. So I'm trying to think of a career after. And he said, it doesn't matter what you take. At the end of the day, he's like, everyone I work with, they have history degrees or geology degrees. Like, really what you're doing is proving you can learn, proving you can stay committed to something with the degree, right? Unless you want to become, potentially a lawyer or a doctor, then yeah, you might want to specialize. And at that point, I was honestly thinking pre-med or doctor. So he said, then take that. Take what you want to take. So that's what I did. And it was a grind because I would have, labs and all these other like 4-hour commitments during the day before practice. So it was a grind, and it was learned about time management, like coming from junior where there's no such thing. You don't have any time management, right? So it's more like the opposite of keeping yourself busy so you don't get in trouble kind of management. But it was a grind, but Brown was nice too, where you could, and I think a couple of the Ivy League schools do that, where you can have the option to do some courses pass fail. So I would take, 2 or 3 courses for my major every semester, and then I would try and sprinkle in one that was maybe a little bit easier or like way out in left field. They really wanted you to shape your education and become a more rounded student, which I think was great. And so it gave me the opportunity to, add maybe an easier course, so to speak, to balance that out, because some of the, the chemistry and the biology courses were a lot of time commitment. So I was a little bit out of my element in some of those classes. Sometimes I was like, what am I doing here? I'm like, in Ivy League school, I got no clue what I'm doing, but I made it. I got my degree. So
yeah. What was your first kind of instance where you said, okay, I'm not in Verdun anymore when you went to Brown? Like, what was the first time you realized you were at an Ivy League school and that you were actually in college?
The first time I realized that is when I checked into the freshman dorm. I roomed with another hockey guy, which was a fluke, but I mean, I'm sure the coaches made sure we shared a room together, because usually you're not supposed to. You're supposed to room with just a random student, right? So I got paired up with Timberlake, and you probably remember him. He was the captain of Port Alberni. So here, him and I show up first day with, we got our hockey bags and garbage bags and a couple cases of beer because we're 21, and Devin looks like he's 40, and we're these big guys. And I remember all the freshmen showing up and with their parents' fancy cars, and all the parents looking at us like, who are these mutants living with my kid? So that was I think that was the like welcome to Brown moment. We're like going on this like really cool dorm, and we got garbage bags and hockey bags, and everyone's wheeling in their suitcases and their fancy cars. It was pretty funny.
That's great. So let's move through now to the HL. You spent 2 seasons with the Manitoba Moose in beautiful Winnipeg, Manitoba. Did you find those 2 years spent in Winnipeg to help prepare you for the NHL?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Obviously, like when I signed my deal, everyone wants to make the NHL. Vancouver was pretty stacked, so I didn't want to be totally naive about it, and I knew there was a good chance that I would start in Manitoba, and I had a really good camp. I was really happy, and I did end up starting there. And you know, it was funny because the first like week of the season, I actually did pretty well. I think I had like 2 assists my first game, couple of my, you know, game 3 or something. And then it sort of really started tailing off. And with college, you know, you're playing on the weekends, and then when you go pro, it's, especially then, like we were playing 7 games in 9 days sometimes, and we were always playing, and it was a tough adjustment for me. So, but that part helped get me ready. But the offensive part was a, sort of tough for me because I did have aspirations of, you know, being maybe not necessarily a top 6 guy, but maybe a third line guy. And I started out in a top 6 role with the Moose. And then, you know, it's tough. Like, it's pro, you know, it's a business. If you're not producing, then they look on someone else. So for me, once I sort of went down that, it was like, okay, quick adjustment, go back to what I know. And I knew I would have to probably start doing some fighting and playing that role, but I really embraced it, you know, probably especially a couple 3 weeks into the season. And that's what it took for me to really embrace that role, like I said. So once that, I actually remember my first fight that season. I think we were in Rockford, and this big D-man's cross-checking me in front of the net, and I dropped my gloves, and I usually would switch to my lefts if I got in tight, and it worked out well, and I popped him, and I skate to the bench, and I'm like, holy shit, that was Wade Brookbank. And, you know, I used to watch this guy fight, and he is fuming. He's chasing after me to the box, and I sit down in the box, and I'm just like, holy shit, I beat him. I didn't beat him up, but I won the fight. And he's just like, we're going again, kid. Like, you better be ready. And I was like, no way, man. I'm taking that risk. He chased me around for the rest of the season. So I probably would have been better off just letting him beat me up. But yeah, so that was, and then from there, I really embraced the role. And you know what? It was like a tough dynamic because I was on a pretty significant AHL deal, a 2-way deal. So when that's the case, you know, you're expected to produce at the AHL, where it was tough because Vancouver was like, no, we're really happy with your game. Do what you're doing. I was a 4th line fighter and banger, but Manitoba didn't really have that plan for me. You know, they're kind of like, we need you to produce. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting the message from the Vancouver guys saying they're happy, but like, you know, it was a bit of an interesting dynamic. So at the end of the day, it worked out, and I'd like to think I could have made the NHL if it wasn't for that. But, you know, that's the role I embraced, just like kind of reverting back to the Vernon days. And it always just came back down to just really staying in the lineup. What am I going to do to stay in the lineup and make that next step? And that was, you know, playing that role, fighting and hitting and skating. And yeah, the offense part never came, but it's tough when you're in pro. It's such a tight leash too, where you don't, especially when I got to the NHL, of, you know, if you make a mistake, you just don't play. So it's sort of tough to get out of that role, because I did, you know, probably had more skill than my stats show. But it's just such a hard environment to have that leash, which you don't really get, right? So, but not that that's on no one but myself and the 4th line guys that I played with. It's just, that was our style, and we did it well, and it worked out.
So being a fighter in junior, obviously is a little bit different than when you move to the NHL. You're talking about, you know, fighting Belak. Did you get nervous, you know, game days before seeing who's in the lineup and knowing there's some guys in the lineup that they're dressing that you might have to fight just in order to kind of make a name for yourself?
Yeah, I did, but not until later in my career. And it's a funny thing. Like, I think most guys that you talk to that had that role, most of the guys felt the same, that anxiety. And I definitely felt that towards the end of my career, when, you know, it was more when injuries started building up, and I, you know, started counting the concussions I had, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to, you know, deal with issues down the road. So you start thinking about that. And like, for me, I wasn't a big guy too. So when I'm like lining up and looking at the sheet, which I didn't do my first couple of years, and I just started doing that, and I would have rather not have done that, but it's just always in your head, right? It's always, who's the next guy? Who's the next guy? Like I remember I fought my first game with the Capitals. I fought Peluso on the Jets, and he beat the snot out of me. And like, he's a big dude, and he just strung me out. And I think I got about 30 stitches in the back of my head. And it's funny, actually, Mullet and the trainers in Winnipeg, he comes in and he's just looking at my head. He's like, "What are you doing fighting that guy, man?" And but that was half of the job, was just showing up, right? Yeah, I didn't win every fight, but a lot of it was just showing up. And that's just part of the role. And the anxiety, like I said, for me, didn't come later. My first few years, it was just, I don't know, you're a little bit just lost in the moment of being in professional hockey. And I really loved the role. It was just later that, yeah, I started, getting more of that anxiety and having a hard time sleeping, thinking about, it's not like a boxing or a UFC where it's like, okay, you got a fight or two a year and then you can have reprieve. It's kind of like, okay, I fought this guy, I can play the rest of the game. And then it's like, okay, I got a game in 3 days. Now I'm thinking about Reeves or whoever it might be that, I'm like, okay, this guy's got 40 pounds on me. It's not like I'm going toe to toe with the guy in junior where, I probably won't get knocked out. Like if you like want to go shot for shot with some of these guys, you're going to get hurt. Right. So that's another thing where you just, it's always in the back of your head. You don't want to get knocked out in front of 20,000 people. Right. So luckily I never did, but
you don't want to get Winchestered.
Yeah. Luckily I had more on my side. So I guess I have that.
Yeah.
Well, I was telling Andy, I was prepping for this podcast, and sometimes I just throw on some old hockey clips on YouTube. So I threw on, best NHL hockey fights. And I think it was number 4, you versus Winchester.
Yeah.
And my friend Erin was in the room, and I said, "Oh, this is the guy. This is the guy I'm going to be interviewing." And she's like, "Oh my goodness."
That was, that was an interesting timing one, because that was my second year, and that was when we lost to Boston in the finals, right? And the consensus was we were pushovers, we weren't tough enough. So I knew I had a good shot to make the team, but they brought in like Owen Nolan, Todd Fedoruk, all these guys on PTOs and a bunch of other guys. There was about 7 guys competing for a spot. So I thought, oh man, like I thought I was a shoo-in. Now I'm not sure. And that game is definitely what I knew right after that I had made the team, because I knocked, I think it was Demers, one of the D-man. That's why Winchester fought me, was because I knocked this guy out of the game. Their D-man coming around the net, popped him with a good hit. And then, Winchester was a weird one. He almost like, we squared off and he like just ran at me. And I was like, what is this guy? It just threw me off. And I, luckily, like as he went to grab me, I pulled back and he was just wide open, and he put him down. We had a good rematch, I think a month or 2 later, but I knew right then that I had made the team, and then I did. So it was interesting timing, but it worked out.
Hey, I don't know, you probably don't know this, but Z walks around the office here, and he's got some pretty good one-liners that he walks around with.
That's not surprising, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure over your games in junior and in college and in pro, who were some of the best trash talkers that you played with or played against?
Oh, in pro, that's a good question. Zinger was definitely a good trash talker. He never backed it up, though.
Oh, that's what I had you for, Patty.
Yeah.
I would just chirp really loud and then just hide behind you and Chewy there.
Yeah. Oh no, you definitely would. You probably still would.
Yeah. Stick to my role, right? I know my role.
Well, Zinger texted me before it. He's like, hey, if they ask you, like, did I always get beat wide in practice? Tell them, like, obviously not. And I said, jokingly, I was like, yeah, I think he said games. But then I was like, well, except me in practice all the time, which is definitely not true, because I wasn't that good. I think, like I said, I didn't score any goals until about game 50.
You had speed, though.
Yeah, I had the speed, but not the hands. The best trash talker in pro. Oh, man, I don't know. That's a tough one. I can tell you one of the funniest guys I played with was Chimera and Ward in Washington. These two were like, it was a comedy show with these guys. It was pretty fun to be around, just the way they got each other going. And in warm-ups, I'll never forget, I can't remember, like Trimmer would just skate around, buzzing, and then someone hit him with a puck like in warm up in the head, and he just like, it wasn't that hard, but he just pretended like he was passed out. Fans are just like, shoot, there's no one helping him, and we're like just all dying laughing. But trash talker, I don't know why I can't think of anyone off the top of my head.
It was by you, that means.
Yeah, I mean, no, I wasn't that good. I definitely participated, I guess you could say. Max Lapierre was a pretty good one. He was pretty ruthless, and he had some good material when I was in Vancouver. He'd be a guy that probably stood out. I mean, it's just the same thing with guys like Marchand, right? You hate him, but you want him on your team. That's part of it, is because they get under your skin so much, right? So he was definitely up there. I'm trying to think guys in Washington. There was a few, but I don't know.
So your first game, Aaron, came back in December 16, 2010. What was that day like for you? Kind of run us through the day. And was your family able to attend your first NHL game? Yeah,
no, they were. I got a call into the office in Manitoba, and they broke the news. And like I said, with the dynamic, I was I wasn't shocked, but you know, they were wanting more, and they're like, I thought that's what the meeting was going to be about. Hey, we need you to do more. But it's like, oh no, you're actually going to Vancouver. So I thought, okay, perfect. And called my family, and you know, obviously everyone was really excited. And yeah, I got there the day before. Luckily, it was nice to get a practice in the day before. So I flew to Vancouver, got the practice. My family came down. Everyone was there. Didn't sleep much the night before. I remember actually in warm-up with the game, I got out there and I was so nervous. I don't even think I touched the puck. I started trying to touch the puck, and I didn't have hands to begin with. So when I, you know, pair that with the nerves of my first NHL game, I'm just like, I just skated around, did the line rushes, and, you know, tried to dish the puck out as fast as I could. But it's funny, like, I think you might've found that even too, you know, even especially in your pro games, where once the game starts, you settle in, and it's just like the nerves calm down and you're kind of settled in. But yeah, the leading up to it was definitely nerve wracking. My whole family was there, and it was a really cool experience. I'll definitely never forget it. So
let's fast forward to 2 games later, your second NHL game, similar to kind of what you said with Manitoba, where you got a couple early points early in your AHL career. You scored your first goal in your second NHL game against Jaroslav Halak of St. Louis. What was that moment like, and run us through that goal?
Yeah, I actually played with Yarrow in Washington, so I got that in my cap. So I always rubbed it in every practice. If I scored, I'd be like, just like my first goal. So that was pretty funny. I mean, I only had 5 of them, but yeah, no, it's funny, and I'm sure a lot of guys will tell you this. When I got to the NHL, especially the first, you know, 5 games, it was kind of a real eye opener, because it was almost easier. There's just it's so much more structured. There's no mistakes. Every time I got the puck, you know, even on my half wall or whatever, I'm like, it was just an easy, like, guys are always in the right spot. So it's funny, that game, I actually hit a post in the third period too. So I thought, wow, like I really belong here. And it was not that I didn't think I would, but it really, you know, fortified that in my head, where, you know, I've worked hard, and no, like, you definitely belong here. And yeah, I scored that goal. It was actually like a textbook 4th line goal. I think it was Glasser, or Balduke, who I was playing with, just ran over a guy in the corner. I just went to the net, got it. And I mean, it looks like I made a good play and waited Yarrow out to slide over, but I mean, truthfully, I just got it, and just like, if I would have one-timed it, he would have saved it. So I probably didn't have the confidence to do that. I caught it, and when he slid over, his 5-hole was wide open, and I didn't even know. It was kind of like a blackout. I just remember, like, holy shit, I just scored a goal, like, you know, my second game. So, and I didn't even score it I don't think I'd scored it in Manitoba up until that point either. So it's just, and that was more to the fact of what I just said, of everyone's always in the right spots. You know, you can throw a guy a grenade and he's going to pick it up. The HL is a little less structured, because, you know, guys are trying to get noticed, and sometimes to do that, you got to run out of position or make a big hit, where you can't do that in NHL, and nor do you need to, right? You need to play within the system and things like that. So yeah, it was interesting, and like just that feeling of, you know, how much better the guys are. It's just every level you go up, and just seeing the structure and yeah, and just like I said, how good everyone is. It was pretty amazing.
Did they give you the rookie lap in warm up?
No, I don't know why, but they didn't. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So in Vancouver, Aaron, you started working with Glenn Carnegie as your skills coach.
Glenny,
as listeners of the podcast know, he just joined our RINK family. What was it like working with Glenn, and how did skill development help you in your career?
Yeah, Glenny was awesome. Unfortunately, this sounds bad, but I'll get to the point. I did spend a lot extra time with Glenny, just only because of injuries. So Glenny and I got to know each other really well, but yeah, he was. I mean, Glenny as a person, first of all, is an awesome guy. So we had a really good relationship. I don't know where he learned these skill moves, but he's definitely got some good ones. So yeah, it was my second year. I had a shoulder injury, and when I came back for the last like month or two, you know, I was just working with Glenny one-on-one, or there'd be three of us, and it was crazy how much better I got with my skills, and just things that you don't even think about even developing, like little things around the net, edge work while you're handling the puck, things like that, where yeah, it made such a difference. And I really noticed, you know, I really wish I would have got back into the lineup that April, I guess, when I think we lost to the Kings in the first round. But like I said, I was just coming off my shoulder injury, but that was one of the best I had felt about my game, because I'd worked with Glenny every day and you know, we would do skills work, you know, a couple times a week. I don't know what the regimen is these days. It might be a little bit different, but yeah, I was with Glenny every day, and the stuff he had us doing was awesome. And like I said, just it's easier to work with someone when you like them as a person, and you know, respect what they bring, and you can have some fun too, right? It's a business, but at the end of the day, I just like that it was still, yeah, it's a job, but you know, you can have fun working hard too. So Glenny definitely believed in that. So that's good. You guys got him on your squad.
Yeah, we're pretty pumped and excited to have him. He's in Kelowna right now, you know, starting out with our skill development there. So excited to work with him in the future for sure.
I'll have to reach out to Glenn if he's in Kelowna. I'll get my comeback going.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, here's a question for you. If you could go back and write a letter to your 18-year-old self, what would some advice you'd give yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd probably just say stay the course, know your role. Yeah, there's going to be bumps along the way, and I think, yeah, be patient, know your role, stay the course. And that was a big thing. I think that's a good message for a lot of the kids now too, because I mean, you guys would know more about this than myself, but I think a lot of the kids now are in such a rush, right, to move on. And, you know, my story is just one example of where, you know, that's not necessarily always the best case. Like, I went to college at 21. I didn't turn pro till I was 25. And, you know, I was a late bloomer. So for me, it worked out better. And it worked out better that I wasn't drafted at 25. I was a free agent. I, you know, had offers from all these teams, and I got to pick and choose. And, you know, I could have signed for an unlimited amount, and I wasn't, you know, I think you guys would agree, if you're drafted like first couple rounds, yeah, but if you're almost better, especially if you're going the college route, to not be drafted if you're really late. So, and I just think there's so much prestige with the draft, and I just, you know, it's not necessarily the be all end all. Like, guys slog it out, and you look at some of the guys like Burrows on Vancouver, you know, come out of nowhere, the East Coast League, and you slog it through, never drafted. Those are just good examples of, it doesn't mean that you're not going to make it or you're going to make it, right? So I think that's a good one, is just be patient and stay the course. Like, I think for my 18-year-old self, I would also say, you know, stay the course. You never know what'll happen, because it wasn't even on my radar. I didn't even think I would have a sniff at playing in the East Coast Hockey League. And, you know, a lot of things happen along the way with adversity that, you know, allowed me to pursue that. Like, you look at my stats at Brown, like, I think I was 10 points every year. And then I went from not even being on the radar, and then my last year of college being like a top 3 NCAA prospect. And I had offers from 10 teams. So I was 24. So it's just another point where stay the course. You never know what'll happen, you know, and if, and you got to do things that a lot of kids aren't willing to do. But I had that in my corner. I knew that, but I think just stay the course, be patient, work hard, and you never know.
Cool.
So after 2.5 years in Vancouver, you moved to Washington, became part of the Washington Capitals organization. How different were those locker rooms run? And was the culture of the teams completely different, or were they very similar?
No, it's funny you say that. They were completely different. Vancouver, when I went there, was much what you would expect. I think I got both ends of the spectrum. Vancouver was very regimented. We had every resource you could imagine: sleep doctors, sports psychologists. We were using like the art machines, the neuro tracker. Like, you could spend all day at the rink. It was pretty cool. Like, all the resources we had, you know, workouts laid out for you, everything. Great food, meals, certain times, all this stuff. And then I got to Washington, and I'll never forget, the first week went by and I get to the rink, and I was like, I asked Ovi or one of the guys, and I said, "Hey, do we have a workout like today?" Or he's like, "Yeah, if you want." You know, it was a country club, too much so. And I think you saw that shift, like, or maybe it was because I left, who knows, but you saw that shift when Trotz came in. And not that it was a coaching staff, it was just it was a little bit of a country club. And then I think you saw that they had to go through all that adversity, and to see them grow as a team. Because my last year, granted, I didn't play because of my neck injury that caused me to retire, but just being around, it was very, very much more regimented and everything like that. And we had a great team. I had a lot of fun. So yeah, it's funny you asked that, because it was complete polar opposite. And then they did change that. And then I don't think it's any accident you saw them win the cup in, what was that, 2018? So yeah, it changed for the better. And but it was just such a close group, especially in Washington. The guys are so close. We had a lot of fun together. So I think that, paired with a change in the dynamic of the whole organization, was needed, and then that helped them get over the edge, I think.
So you mentioned Ovechkin. You know, you played with Carlson, Backstrom, the Sedin brothers in Vancouver. Did you ever get a chance to pick those guys' brains? You know, big time hockey guys, a guy like Ovi. Did you ever get a chance to sit down with him and kind of pick his brain? And if so, did they ever show you anything in practice that you thought was really cool or different?
I didn't really pick their brains a lot. I mostly just watched in admiration, to be honest. Like, the way Ovi would shoot the puck, or the way like the Sedins would, the things they would do in practice was just, it's just insane, these guys, to see day to day what they do. It really goes to show you there is a really, it's similar to the comment I made about junior hockey, about the hard line between the top 6 and the bottom 6. Like, the elite of the elite in the NHL is, I mean, everyone is that good, but these guys are on another level. Like, the way Ovi shoots the puck, I don't think it's any secret that there's a chance he could break, Gretzky's goal record, because how he works on his shot every day, and the Sedins, the way they, play with the puck together. It's just, it's almost something you can't really teach. I mean, that they work on it hard, obviously, but I didn't really pick their brains. I more picked the coach's brains and those resources. A little bit it's too, when you're a rookie, especially my first couple of years, you're kind of staying in your lane a little bit, and you don't want to make a lot of noise. And I was just getting to work and just really honestly just enjoying it. And honestly, like kind of admiration at some of these guys. Like Backstrom's a guy that I think everyone will tell you he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. He's probably one of the most underrated players in the league. He would be up there with the Sedins in terms of the way he sees the game and slows it down. It's just, I remember like practicing penalty kill against this guy is just like, I might as well just stand still. Like, it doesn't matter what I do. So, I mean, like I said, those things, I think for me, it was just like, I know what I am. And like, trust me, I worked hard to get better every day. But for me, that was like getting better at making the right play off the wall, not, trying to throw saucer passes through like 5 guys to back door, like what I mean? So that's part of like know my role. And, but I would grab guys like Backy and we would play keep away. And once again, I didn't stand much of a chance, but it was more like that, just having fun with the guys and getting better through that. But yeah, to answer your question, I didn't really pick their brains too much. It was, I think they were just on a whole nother planet in terms of skill. So it was more just a little admiration.
Did any skill players ever pick your brain on how to protect themselves?
No.
No.
No, it'd be like, it was more just of the dialogue of going out for the game, and maybe Ovi or Becky be like, "Oh, you fight tonight?" Yeah, maybe we'll see. I don't know. Oh, okay. It was pretty loose. Yeah.
That's awesome, Patty. So bring us to our next thing to talk about is the Hockey Gives Blood initiative that you are a part of. Just sort of tell us why you joined and why you think it's an important part of today, not only of hockey players, but everyone.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys know the backstory, but a guy I played junior hockey with, Stu Middleton, and Tanner Murray, they founded this right after the Humboldt accident happened. Stu, when we were playing, I played with him in Revelstoke in junior B, and his dad got killed in a head-on accident coming to watch one of our games. And, nothing really ever came of it. It was just another statistic is what, stuck with Stu. And then when the Humboldt thing came around, the amount of blood that some of these kids needed to try and save their lives, and did save some of their lives, was astronomical. And for Stu, and for everyone involved, all the money raised with that was great, but it was more like, what's the legacy, and like, what are people going to remember like 30 years from now? And that's how Hockey Gives Blood was born, was, really trying to make a difference for the future in terms of blood donations and stem cell donations and all these arms of like organs, tissues, plasma, like there's so many arms of it too. And we really thought, you guys know the hockey world is so tight, and it's such a good community to leverage that to make a difference. And that's exactly what we've done. And we're partnered, especially with the CHL, with our player ambassador program now, is our sort of our flagship program. Or it's not sort of, it is our flagship program. And these kids are in a position to make a big difference in some of these with some of these teams, and that's what we've done. And so basically what it is it's just advocating for stem cell blood donations within the hockey community, just to really reach out to a bigger group of people, because in Canada we know hockey is such a big part of our lives, right? So to have that, or to leverage it, it's a mutual benefit relationship for everyone. So that's basically where it's gone. And then for me personally, when I was in the hospital being burnt and I needed my surgeries, I got blood. My ex-wife and my future wife, funny enough, both needed blood. So it's something it's close to home for me personally. So when they approached me, it was a no-brainer. And like I said, I played with the guys, so I knew them. And yeah, to see like how much we've grown since inception, it's been pretty cool to be a part of. So yeah, if your listeners want to check it out, just go check out hockeygivesblood.ca and get more info.
And donate blood, obviously.
And donate blood. It's especially with COVID. I think it's 70%. People are obviously less inclined just because of the nature of the pandemic we're living in, but the blood shortage is, you know, the need for blood hasn't gone down. It's stayed the same. So there's really a gap there. And that's what we're really trying to hit home here is, you know, these people still need, you know, blood to, whether they're dealing with an illness, a disease, an injury. You know, blood doesn't stay in the bank forever. It goes, you know, you need to replenish those sources. So, yeah.
Well, Aaron, thanks for taking the time out of your day. Really appreciate you coming on here, telling some funny stories and, you know, just giving us a little bit of background on your hockey path. We wish you all the luck moving forward with Hockey Gives Blood. And yeah, just thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. Good to see you again, Zinger.
Thanks, Patty. Yeah, good to see you too, buddy. We'll keep in touch here.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Have a good day.